Hello and welcome to Sami Parvez show. Today I am joined by Donovan Eckstrom, an independent candidate for Toronto St. Paul's by-election. The most interesting thing is he's from Alberta. He's living in Alberta right now, but he's running for this by-election in Toronto. In Toronto St. Paul's by-election, there are total 84 candidates. 73 are independent candidates who have been nominated by large ballot, and two are non-affiliated candidates, and nine from various political parties, including Conservative, Liberal, NDP, Green, People's Party of Canada, and some other smaller parties. Today, Donovan joined me to talk about why he is interested in running Toronto, Ontario, as he is in living in Alberta. Thank you so much, Donovan, joining us today. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here from the beautiful northern parts of Alberta.
Yeah, it's good to know that. And like I lived in Saskatchewan for 7 years, then moved here.
I saw that you worked in Moose Jaw too. Did you work I'm trying to think what was the mall, the Town and Country Mall. I think they have a mall there. That's this, but it's all empty now. I was driving across Canada and I
Okay.
had my vehicle, my coolant was all kind of funky, and I ended
Mm-hmm.
up trapped in Moose Jaw. But it's not bad. It's not bad. It's no Alberta, but
Oh.
it is Moose Jaw's
Mm-hmm.
pretty good.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So you are on the ballot list, as one of those 73 candidates in the by-election in Toronto St. Paul's. So there are a total of 84 candidates, and there are nine of them are from various parties, and two are non-affiliated, and 73 are independent candidates, and you are one of them. So could you please tell me why you wanted to be on that ballot?
Well, that's a great question, Sammy. I appreciate that question. It's a solid question. One of the big reasons why I want to be on there, I think partially to give those in Toronto the opportunity to have somebody from Alberta represent them.
Wow.
Um, which is, I think, it's always a thing people talk about,
Mhm.
where they're like, oh, well, I don't know, what about this, what about this, but I'm putting action in, right? We can always sit down and bellyache and complain out in Alberta that, oh,
Yeah.
the East is screwing us over, so why not get somebody from Alberta to run in that riding? And hey, if the Torontonians like it, hey, things aren't going too well, you can always look at this Albertan independent. But yes, no, the ballot is very big, as you had noticed, 73 independents and nine parties, and some of which are parties that are very small, fringe
Mhm.
parties. You have
Yeah.
two non-affiliation
Yes.
candidates. And
Mhm.
so what the other reason too is, of course, there's the political group, the longest ballot
Elect.
committee,
Mhm.
which is made up of led by a talented crew that are ticked off at Justin Trudeau ignoring his promise for electoral reform.
Mhm.
And this is giving an opportunity to showcase that there's absurdities in this political process. The fact that I can run in northern Alberta, but I
Mhm.
can't vote for myself
Yeah.
in this election, but yet I can run, sort of highlight some of the absurdities, as well as sort of putting pressure on that and saying, hey, it's not fair that you get elected on this promise and then you back away from it.
Mhm. So you do support the proportional vote, right?
So, I not necessarily. I think that it's worthy of a discussion
Mhm.
that the politicians don't want to have.
Mhm.
Which is why it's sort of having a citizens assembly is a good idea. Let's at least explore some options, and if we end up back at first past the post as the will of the people,
Yeah.
then we do that. But it doesn't make sense that politicians are the ones that decide the rules. Like Sammy, think about this, right?
Mhm.
You get a job,
Yeah.
you get paid $200,000 a year.
Mhm.
Huge. You get 4 months off. Most of your expenses are paid. You can travel all over the place.
Yeah.
The only catch is that once every 4 years, you have a performance review. And if you fail that performance review, you lose your job. Now, what would you rather have? Would you want to be in charge of the parameters of that review, or would you rather have someone else? And obviously you would want to be the one that's in charge of the parameters of this review. And that's
Yes.
sort of what's happening in Ottawa. These people get elected. Why would they change a system that got them in, right?
Yeah.
It's too risky. It's a self-preservation thing. So that's one of the big reasons of just like, let's have a conversation going. Let's get that citizens assembly happening and let's see what we can do. But hey, that beyond that, as said, I'm using them as an opportunity as well to get Torontonians to elect an Albertan, or if they want to vote for an Albertan.
Usually like Eastern at like Western.
Oh yeah, no, yeah. It's all about the West. West is best. West is
Yeah,
best.
West is best, but our Ontarians or like Quebecers, they also ate the Albertans and prairies.
There's only one way for them to learn, Sami, that Albertans aren't too shabby. So this is an opportunity for them
Yeah.
to learn a little bit about what makes Alberta the best province.
So could you please let's talk about, if you don't mind, about yourself, like what are you doing and what's your qualification, and so you already mentioned about why you are interested to run, like just to have an Albertan voice in the Toronto.
Yes.
And so what more interested to put you there, and why you never thought to be in your own riding? Where are you living right now, in the past election or in the next election?
Well, yeah, no, I guess one of the reasons why I think I'm qualified is that I've run in plenty of elections. I have the experience of political experience of being able to run. It's not my first rodeo, as we have them out here: Stampede, Grand Prairie Stampede, Teepee Creek Stampede, little rodeos and whatnot. But we really, why not have? So like, listen, I'm not going to sit down. I have a hat that says, if you if you can't dazzle them with brilliance, baffle them with bullshit. I feel that I'm fairly well aware of some things. And one of the big things too that I'm not a big fan of are I actually just don't like political parties in general. I typically run for the Rhinoceros Party, which has been my stomping ground. I've run for them 4 times. I've run for them 4 times. And I appreciate their views of political parties being a bunch of wacky nonsense. See, look at that. I avoided swearing. I was going to say lots of swears. So I'm doing well, Sami. I think I'm doing okay. But I think one of the big reasons why is first off, having that Alberta voice is good, but having somebody that is not afraid to rustle feathers, and not afraid to challenge the lobbying incestuous relationship that's taking place in Ottawa between lobbyists and our elected parliamentarians. No matter what side you're on, you could be a conservative, a liberal, ND. The lobbyists have their dirty fingers inside all of the holes of our politicians, Sami, and that's something that I would not be afraid of challenging, and certainly taking that down there.
Thank you. Don't you think the longest ballot campaign should focus on running one candidate and encourage all the other candidates to vote for this guy, or just do volunteer for the only one candidate? Let's make a change.
I don't think it would. I don't think we would be talking, Sami, if that was taking place. I think the fact that I am on the ballot, there's another guy in Grand Prairie on the ballot. I think there's somebody from the territories. Like the fact is that we wouldn't be having this conversation if it was just one independent. It catches eyes. Why is the ballot so big? Research a little bit. Oh, okay. Like the thing is Sami, is that independent candidates do well. It's not uncommon for an independent candidate to do well. I think last election, I think you can sit down and probably count about 5% of ridings where an independent beat one of the major parties. And like, I think there were 3 ridings that had independents shooting like way above. Nobody talks about that. Nobody's going to sit down and talk about that, right? I think that this is an opportunity, as I said, to get a discussion going. The fact of the matter is, Sami, is that I am probably not going to win. Like I'm not. I think we can make it pretty clear here. It's going to be one of the main parties, the Liberals or the Conservatives. Yeah. So we get an independent. We get one independent that runs, and they get 130 votes. Right? It's like that nobody's going to care. This is at least getting people starting to talk about. And I said, I don't think you would be talking to me if it was
definitely
if we had just one person and I was there advocating for just some random Albertan, right?
Yeah, you made a good point regarding that. It means it is bringing attention from everyone. Yeah, that makes sense. So yeah, independent candidate, I believe former Justice Minister Jody Wilson was the first MP who was elected as an independent candidate, if I'm not wrong. I believe she was the first.
Yeah, I think that sounds about right. But said though, like independents typically, there's always an independent that does. I think in Cape Breton, there was a guy that when it ran as an independent last election that ended up with like he got I think 3rd. And everyone was like, "Whoa, that's crazy!" And then they moved on about their day. So it's not, it's an independents can do well. It's not crazy. Up here in Grand Prairie, actually, an independent got 2nd. He got 10,000 votes. So it's like who he eventually became mayor. But yeah.
So how do you see? Is it going to make an impact near future to air our voices? So do you think Ottawa under Liberal government, under Trudeau leadership, or if so, Pierre Poilievre would be expecting the next Prime Minister of Canada. So under his watch, do you think they will start listening, or they will just give up?
No.
And then say, "Oh, you go on."
No, it's that whole conflict of interest again, right? It's like, okay, well, we got in on this system. Why would we want to change it, right? It's like, okay, let's keep that. And you're going to have it, right? And no matter what, too, you can have a political. This is one of the reasons too that I'm not a fan of political parties is that all the best intentions, as soon as you get into power, suddenly it's all gone, right? You can sit down and run. We could have a party that's whole basis is electoral reform, and that party gets a majority in. Well, we're going to take our time with it. And all of a sudden, the lobbyists, all of a sudden, like back money starts coming in. No matter what, I don't think it's going to be. It's going to take a fundamental shift in thinking when it comes to the electoral process that you don't have to vote for. I don't like political parties. As I said, I mentioned, I don't like political parties. I think political parties made sense, Sami, back in the 1400s, back when it was like the first House of Commons of England, when you were like, we don't know what we're doing. We're just let's vote for Bill the Butcher because he seems smart. And then you find out that Bill the Butcher wants to marry 6-year-olds. And you're like, oh, why? Whoa. So now you're like, okay, at least let's start getting some political parties together. It made sense from like the 1400s until like the internet really started to hit it. Now I'm finding that political parties massive amounts of money. And the political parties don't particularly care about the member that donates $1. They care more about the member that donates $5,237 or whatever the max is for Canadian electoral donations. I think it's $1,500 for the party, but then you can donate like $3,000 for constituency associations, something like that.
Yeah, I think so.
It's like $5,000 that you can donate, and that little bit, that amount of money is only representing such a few percentage of people who vote or who donate, but they are funding. I think it's like 5% of people donate over $1,000 to political parties in Canada. And that 5% funds like half of the Liberal donations. That 5% funds like a third of the Conservatives. So you're like, are they going to really listen to you? Are they going to listen to me? Are they going to listen to anybody? No, they're going to listen to the people, the powers that be, as said, the folks that have their fingers in all the orifices. So yeah, I don't think Pierre is going to do much. I think you could get somebody that would advocate for it, but if they get power, it's done. It's not gonna. They'll shift it right away. You need to. I hope one day we can have a leader that has some cojones, some balls, Sami. But I don't think we're going to have that for a bit.
So how do you see People's Party of Canada leader Maxime Bernier? Don't you
I
think
think
he
it's
is
a sort of the
different?
same thing. Like who donates to what? Like what is funding these groups, right? I think like he can sit down and say out in Alberta, we had the Alberta NDP. I'm not a fan of them.
Yeah.
They got in 2015 and they had these promises of we're going to be environmental, we're going to put a moratorium on oil sands developments, we're going to make sure that all the oil sands sites are following our environmental regulations. Fine, you're now in power. And then as soon as they got in power, that promise disappeared. And you're like, well, why did that happen? And now we have tailings ponds that are sending pollutants into lakes and ruining water supplies north of Athabasca. And you're like, if you had just followed your promise, then that might have been avoided, right? So I don't trust politicians as like I trust politicians about as far as I can throw them, which isn't very far. Political parties too. There's too many people. You can't really throw them too far. And so I just don't think it's not gonna go anywhere. I think like let's just even imagine PPC gets in. Bam, boom. You're like, oh great, like Sami, unbelievable. 2025 federal election. Mackerel. It is a Maxime Bernier wave. Coast to coast, 300 seats. Oh, baby. The people are going to start coming. The lobbyists are going to start coming. They're all going to do the thing that they do. The people who got the party PPC set up are going to be like, hey, now I scratched your back, you can scratch mine. And that's why I don't like political parties. I think even the ones that are best intentions are going to be sullied by power, absolute power. Corrupts absolutely.
So at this time, so you believe none of those 338 members in the parliament don't represent your views?
No, I don't think. Yeah, I don't think any. I don't like. It's always going to be. There's always somebody that they're talking to, and like I think this is one of the big things too. Like I usually run for the Rhinoceros Party, which is a joke satirical party. We crack jokes and make fun of things. But like next election, I might run on a somewhat serious platform of lobbyist reform and more lobbyist transparency. Because I think that all these backroom deals that are happening aren't beneficial for anybody. I think that it's like, why are these decisions being made? Even in Alberta, once again, Alberta. I'm an Alberta boy. I love Alberta. But sometimes the politics here drives me off the freaking wall. Like Danielle Smith is making some decisions of having municipal political parties, despite 75% of Albertans. And I don't know anybody who says it's a good idea outside of people that are politicking, wanting to make some big bucks off of it. And so I don't know anybody, and yet they're making that decision. Well, why? Well, let's start to figure that out. And I think that if you started to make public every lobbyist meeting and you make it public and transparent, hey, this is what's happening. This is what's happening. This is what's happening. I think you can actually get something somewhere and be like, oh, that's why you made that decision. Okay, at least we know, instead of this weird, wacky backroom deals and shadiness. And also hiring lobbyists. It's like, that's what's going to happen next election. Pierre Poilievre is going to get a majority. Barring like a catastrophic failure. And he's going to bring in his lobbyists, are going to get hired as staffers. And then all the liberals are going to get hired as lobbyists. The little dance continues. And it's going to end up, like I said, it's incestuous at this point. It's irritating.
So do you think politicians, like everyone gets in politics and run for office, they just do it for power and money, nothing else?
I don't think they get into it initially.
Mhm.
I don't think, I think it's like there are people that have good hearts. I know I know people that run. I know that I know I have met people that have been in there. But I think once you get up there, to realize that you can't do a lot of what's there. Like it starts to become a big issue. You start to lose that support, you start to lose that money, and all of a sudden, oh God, like what's going on? Um, I think people can have the best intentions, but as soon as you're in there, you have to have a will of steel to not build like Randy Boissonneau. It's like, oh, I'm just going to have some like, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars on the side and be like, yeah, I don't, it's hard. I don't, you're only human. Oh, sorry,
Mhm.
the other Randy. It's not
Yeah.
Randy Boissonneau. It's the other
Okay.
Randy. There's the,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm sorry, there's another Randy. There's like 7 Randys who he hired. It's crazy. What are the odds? Which I think is brilliant, by the way. If I was like a dirty politician and I had a business, I would hire 20 Donovans and
Mhm.
then I would be invincible. I'd be like, you can't catch me. It's they're all referring to Donovan. It's amazing. It's amazing, Sam.
Yeah, thank you, Donovan. So you don't see a difference in Alberta too, like between conservative party and NDP, Alberta's like provisional.
No, I don't. I think that they're all. It's as soon as that I said like it was a thing that I hadn't noticed. Shockingly, during COVID, I had a lot of free time to start reading.
Mhm.
And I was like, oh, I'll just start looking into this and this and this. And yeah, like 2015, like, and you're like, you know, the NDP, super environmental. Okay, they win, and then it disappears and it starts to go towards like this. And yeah, I don't like, I think that there's subtle differences. I think that you're going to have some differences of you know, we're going to talk like the NDP probably is going to talk to unions more, which I also like. Listen, I am pro. Give me like union trade unions, bring that up. But like that also needs to be transparent. You need to have that discussion. You can't just sit down and go, we're going to have these meetings behind the back. Don't worry, it's not lobbyists, it's union leaders. You're like, no, no, no. We need to have that discussion brought up as well to understand why these decisions are being made. But no, I don't think, I think, yeah, subtle differences like you'll have a little bit more union talk. So you might have more doctors being a little bit nicer to the NDP, but versus the UCP would probably has more of the private corporations a little bit nicer. But I think ultimately that big money driver is going to shift any amount of caring and heart is going to be pulled away towards that the beautiful beautiful polymer dollars.
Okay. So, have you, I believe you heard about National Security and Intelligence Committee of Parliamentarians report regarding colluding with, some MPs are colluding with foreign powers.
Oh yeah,
So, what's your thought on that?
I think it's about what I've been saying. This, like, I think it, once again, are we really shocked that we're getting softball questions from the conservatives being like, well, you know, if you could just say the names, but if you don't want to, that's okay. It's like, I'm not too shocked that everybody is protecting themselves. In fact, one thing I'll say though, good on the NDP. I'm not not a fan of political parties, but at least they're like hard being like, you need to release the name. Same with the Bloc. I think it's the
Yeah.
Bloc and NDP are like, you need to release the names, which I'm like, I think that's a fair thing. I think that it being this weird behind the scenes stuff is odd, but this is once again proving my point that politicians are, you're going to protect themselves. You're going to sit down and protect and cover your back as much as possible. And you know, oh, I've scratched your back this whole time. We're going to protect you. Don't worry. You're a good backbencher or you're a good cabinet minister, heaven forbid. But yeah, it's ridiculous. It is once again the reason why we need to have that transparency. I
Mm.
think if you're going to meet with somebody and you're, if as a politician, I think that these need to be more public instead of really behind the scenes. Now, of course, I'm aware too that you're not going to have everything be public if you're talking national security and stuff. I get that, but at least it'd be like, well, that's kind of weird. Seamus O'Regan keeps hanging out with Iranian some politicians. Like that's odd. At least we
Mhm.
can start to follow that a little bit. Not that he did that. I'm just sort of making a hypothetical. But like it'd be like that's really weird that this guy's meeting with the head of China every 2 weeks over sushi, and
Yeah.
they're charging it to taxpayers. That's odd. What a weird thing. And then we can start to be like, oh, okay, that makes sense. So yeah, I think just more transparency. That's all I want. I think it's all most Canadians want, outside of the ones that are lost in the sauce of their favorite political party.
Yeah, but when the NCCOP report was revealed on that day, just the Bullock was the first to talk about this one, then followed by NDP. But that day, conservative were completely silent on this issue.
Yeah.
But the following day, since then they have started have been calling it out, but it is unclear. No one knows whether Trudeau is going to release the names or not.
Yeah. Well, it's one of those. We're having the big problems of foreign interference, which it's we're what's going to happen, and you're the one that's in charge of the whole country. You
Country,
can
yeah,
only complain. You can only blame Harper so much
yeah,
until until it's like, hey, it might be you to start.
take some
Some of the problems
responsibility.
are on you, right?
Yeah, if Edmonton Oilers, like our hockey team, if we it would lose the game, so we cannot like just blame the coach.
Yeah. No. We have to blame. The decade of darkness. That's why. The reason the Oilers lost wasn't the Oilers right now. No, it was the 10 years where they sucked. It's like, well, okay. You can only do that so much.
Yeah, so this is what's happening. So I lost. Okay. Sorry.
No, it's okay.
No,
Sammy, so
sorry. So if let's talk about, as you are running for the part, like as an independent candidate. So if you had the power, would you release those names?
oh no, yes. Like, and if I had the power to make everything transparent in government, you bet I would. I'm aware too, like that. There's a small part of me that is also aware that I don't like I haven't read the whole document. I've
Mhm.
been sort of busy with work because I have a job, which is I can't. It's no longer the times of 2020 where I could just sit in my underwear and read government documents willy nilly.
Yeah.
Um, but like I'm aware that there's still a process that has to kind of be followed. But obviously there was enough evidence for it to be in a report to say, hey, this is what's happening. I think that you should at least mention the names. Like
Mhm.
I don't think it's behoove, particularly because I think the cynical part of me is assuming that it's just going to disappear. Yeah, and eventually the questions will start to go down. You just kind of have to avoid it a little bit, and then everything will go back to normal. And so I cynical part of me is assuming, and I think at least getting the names out there, you have it. So when it does eventually go away, life goes back to normal. But that this politician was hanging out with these guys and giving information. But yeah, I would tell that in a second. Oh, and also I just like Schadenfreude. I like watching uh, bureaucrats squirm. It gives me a lot of joy, Sammy.
Mhm. So do you think those names will be released?
No, the cynical part of me says no. Just think that it's too far in. I think I said I think give it a week. This conservative questions will start to get less and less. There's going to be another something that happens,
Mm.
and then it'll just be a committee meetings on CPAC, and nothing will get from it. I don't think it's going to go anywhere. And then the NDP will go back to screaming about pricing of
Mm.
vegetables, and then it all just goes back to the way it is. I don't have too much fault. It's sort of the same thing. There's like the We Charity stuff,
Mhm.
HNC Lavalin. Like you're like, it doesn't show. It's like it's really big news for about a week and a half, and then goodbye, goes into the ether.
Yeah, but if it happened any other democratic world or countries, so the prime minister would resign on the same day, isn't it?
Yeah, Canada's kind of a funky place. So, we sit down and talk about how great of a democracy we are,
Mm.
and then we have this happening, the SNC Lavalin. We have all these different, and then everybody just kind of goes about it. It's bizarre. we're this weird, I don't know. It's crazy. Canada's this it's like we're playing pretend democracy. It's like a kindergartner. I taught kindergarten for like 6 months, and
Mhm.
it's like a kindergartner's version of what democracy is what
Yes.
Canada's is. We're kind of like we're making it. I saw my dad wear a tie. You're like, okay,
Mhm.
don't worry. I go to these different things and shake hands. Like, yeah, okay, but like, are you gonna be a an adult now?
Mhm.
And I just think it's all just kind of it's a mockery, which is why the Rhino Party's great. You know, you get to make fun of the thing that's stupid.
Mhm. And Trudeau recently on D-Day speech, he said that democracy is still under threat. Do you? Yeah. And
Yeah, I get. Yeah, it's yeah the guy who's the leader of the that's trying to hide the names of it's under a threat. Yeah, are we really shocked by that? No. Yeah, it's irksome. It's all irksome. I'm quite irked. It's just let's instead of platitudes. It's easy to talk. Talk is cheap, I guess.
Mhm.
Sammy is what I'm getting. Anybody can talk. Anybody can sit down and say this will be the last election, and 2015 will be the last election and first past the post. Talk is cheap, and that's why I said as much as like I know that you love Maxime Bernier. I would imagine. I think you're a fan of Maxime Bernier, but I said I've seen too many politicians.
Mhm.
It falls apart. I've yet to meet one. Even like you sit down and look at somebody like Jack Layton, who's held in quite a high regard in Canada. He was still influenced by this. There were still lobbyists that were influencing. I think the NDP went hard lobbyists in like the mid '90s, and you're like, they went from a party for the people to we got to get those corporate interests in. And it's like you're never going to find Canadians need to just free themselves, these
Mhm.
political parties, and realize that political parties aren't in it for you. They will throw you. If a political party, Sammy, if a political party knew that they could get power for 10 more years, but like I had to get shot and killed, you don't think a political party is going to like do that? Of course they are. 10 more years of power? Hell yeah. We're going to kill a random citizen. Like I think that is how cynical I am.
Mhm.
Like I am like I have no trust in it. And
Voltage.
I think that it's easy. Talk is cheap. Anybody can say, I can sit down and say, if I'm elected, I'm going to fix this country. Probably not. But I can say it. It's easy. It's easy to say, but
Yeah, but so as you said, like I'm a fan of Maxime Bernier. No, I'm not a fan of any political parties and any leader. So I just brought it in my show just to see his views. So I also sent, no, I know, I also sent like request to all candidates from whoever I was access to for the whose contact emails were available. I sent to them, but still I did not receive any response. So
sorry. No, that was me. I shouldn't have just,
no, 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 no,
I
no, no, no.
talk is
It's
easy.
okay.
Talk is easy, Sammy. You
Yeah,
just
yeah. So
allegedly.
just last question. How do you see the mass immigration in Canada?
Like I think immigration is a good thing.
Mhm.
The problem is when you just start sending people, 90% of immigrants go to, what is it, Toronto, Vancouver. It's like the main cities, right? I think it's
Yeah.
90, something like 90%. Meanwhile, the housing markets in those places are skyrocketing. I think Edmonton used to be, when I was living in Edmonton in the early 2010s, I think Edmonton was a great place for uh, migration because housing was affordable, doctors, you had enough. But now Edmonton's starting to kind of hit that point where you're having too much housing. So I think that you need to start to strategize a little bit of where these migrants are going. You need to have the infrastructure. And that's another thing. I don't know. I've emailed politicians being like, how does the immigration system work in Canada? Because it just seems like you're bringing people in. Why not start to strategize a little bit where places can go? As somebody from northern Alberta, there's so many communities here that are dying.
Mhm.
That are having an older population. Young people are moving away. Why not give an influx of having people move up to like high prairie? Like or high level the houses are cheap, you have family doctors, you actually have infrastructure that I think that there just needs to be a strategic thinking. Lebanese civil war happens in the 70s, and Canada, Western Canada in particular, over the next over like the 2 years got hundreds of thousands of Lebanese immigrants. And did they all just move to one city? No, they moved to Mayerthorpe. They moved to Grand Prairie. They moved to all these different areas and then started businesses, started contributing. And I think that's the magic there that we need. You can have millions and millions of people come in, but you just can't shove them in one spot and expect everything to be hunky dory. You need to start thinking about, right? And it's the same thing. I think there needs to be like a checklist, Sami. There needs to be like a checklist where you go, okay, do we have the medical infrastructure for this? No. Okay. Then we can't have migrants come here. Do we have how's the housing? No. Okay, housing market's too hot. All right, well, what about Churchill, Manitoba? Okay, look at that. Churchill has a medical doctors. Churchill has this, bam, 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 bam. And then you can start actually having some semblance of an influence and also cultural infrastructure. If you're bringing just a bunch of people in that aren't used, and I think that's also what made Western Canada work out. Well, Western Canada had a little bit of a Lebanese population. You had people come in and be like, oh, this is what Western Canada is. Start to get a part of it and all that. I just think that there needs to be, the Bank of Canada, I think, also said it's like we can't keep bringing people in without having a plan, which is sort of what it seems like. And I think you can bring people in, but you just can't shove them all into one or like one of four cities.
Yeah.
Look at all these different places here, and like communities that would love an influx. Like up in Fairview, Alberta, when it was Harper's time, the temporary foreign workers, you actually ended up having a lot of them, a lot of Filipino people staying, and you're like, oh, and still living and still making businesses and still making stuff happen there with their culture, while still embracing the Canadian culture. I think that's where we need to start thinking about. There needs to just be some thought, Sami. There needs to be some semblance of thinking. It doesn't feel like there's any semblance of thought outside of we're just bringing people in, and you're like, okay, our medical system can't handle it, but okay, that's cool. We'll put everything on the edge. So those are my thoughts on that.
Yeah, good. Yeah, I agree with that one. It means there should be some checklist and see what you have. Like you cannot fill out if a bus is already full, so you cannot put more people there.
Yeah, but if and it's the bus in Toronto full, but the bus in Northern Ontario has some room. We can make some stuff happen there. Welcome, and the houses are and then start to get that influx, right? And then you end up having some cool little spots that take place outside of this, throughout this beautiful country, Sami.
Thank you so much. And what's your message? Do you have a message to Toronto St. Paul's residents?
I'll throw my Grand Prairie, Alberta hat back on for this. Toronto St. Paul's, you have an opportunity to do something special. You have an opportunity of getting an Albertan to represent you. I know that we in the past might not have had the Alberta, Ontario, it's the lover's tiff. But I think by getting a true blue Albertan, somebody who's born and raised and lived in Alberta for over 30 years, entire life living in Alberta, I think some of those beautiful Albertan perspectives will guide you towards something sensational and beautiful. So vote Donovan Eckstrom, Albertan solutions for Canadian problems.
Thank you so much, and wishing you a very best wishes on this by-election. Okay, thank you so much, Donovan, for your time and talking with me and sharing your views.
Oh, thank you, Sami. Take care. Have a wonderful rest of your Saturday.
Yeah, you as well. Thank you. Cheers. Take care.
Peace.